Welcome to another How Healthy Are You weekly educational podcast. My name is Dr. Thomas Brewer. I'm a PhD chemist and nutritional blood microscopist. In this podcast, we've got three questions to cover. The first is on hypertension, and I've talked about hypertension or high blood pressure in a few other podcasts, but I think it's good to go over it again and to go over the solutions that are related to each particular cause. First thing I want to say about hypertension or high blood pressure, your blood pressure goes up in order to save your life until it kills you. So what I mean by that is there's something going on in the body. It forces the blood pressure to go up, or else it wouldn't even circulate. But once it gets so high, you end up with a stroke, and which kills you. So therefore, the blood pressure will increase until it kills you. It's a signal that there's a problem. So let's go over the four main causes. The first one, the cause is due to plaque or calcification or cholesterol hardening. It really is all the same thing. And two things happen when there's a buildup of plaque on the arteries. The first is the arteries get smaller, so they get narrower, and therefore, in order to get the same volume of blood through a smaller tube, you must increase the pressure, which increases the flow rate. The other thing that happens when plaque builds up on the arteries is the arterial wall gets harder, meaning it's not as flexible. So it's more like an iron pipe versus a rubber hose. And we want the blood vessels to be flexible. So the solutions here would be, one, you would take plant enzymes at bedtime, so that way you would dissolve that plaque buildup. The other thing is you would take heart algae during the day, because the heart algae will prevent the plaque from forming in the first place. So some combination of those two will eliminate that first cause. The dosage for the enzymes at bedtime, typically 1 or 2 per evening. Heart algae, typical dosage, 1 with the first meal of the day, 1 with the last meal of the day, i.e. 2 heart algae per day. Okay, the second main cause for plaque is due to blockage in the kidneys where the blood is filtered. So if the filter is clogged, the only way to get a liquid through the filter is to apply more pressure, and therefore the pressure must go up or you wouldn't even get blood flow. These are normally spicules. I can see them during a blood microscopy, but if you suspect something going on with your kidneys, you would take the plant enzymes with your meals. That would dissolve those spicules, even prevent them from forming in the first place. The third cause is when the blood gets heavy, meaning it's harder to pump. The two main causes for this is excess water in the blood and excess fat in the blood. The excess water is a famous one. This is caused from salt. So that's why you're often told to decrease your salt intake. Every ion of salt surrounds itself by 6 molecules of water. So 6-to-1 ratio there when we consume salt. This excess water is in the blood. It makes the blood harder, heavier to pump. So therefore, the blood pressure goes up because it's trying to pump a fluid that is more difficult to pump. The fat in the blood is usually caused from consuming too many fats, including the good fats, too much olive oil, too much coconut oil, of course, as well as the bad fats, too much vegetable oil, high-fat foods, fat that's in animal products such as dairy and meat. All of that is going to put fat in the blood. That I can also see in the blood. During a blood microscopy, it'll be called chylus, but all it is fat in the blood. And I can see it. It looks almost like parasites, but there'll be thousands of times, maybe millions more pieces of chylus than parasites. And the solution there is to decrease your total fat intake, including oils, and as far as the water in the blood, decrease your salt intake. So that third problem where the blood is heavy, easy solution, it's just something to avoid or reduce salt or fat. The fourth is caused from stress, and stress makes our breathing labored, and it raises our blood pressure because our arteries tend to stiffen. So the solution with stress is mainly in breathing, and part of the question for this podcast was about breathing techniques. So I have a video on breathing. It's called Phase 1 to 3 Breathing Techniques, but I'm going to go over Phase 1 because it's the easiest, it works, and you really don't have to memorize anything. So Phase 1 breathing, you're just consciously aware of each breath you take. But I'm going to make a slight improvement to the video I made. We're going to breathe with our mouth closed. So we're going to go in and out through the nose. So all you're doing is thinking about your breathing. You're just breathing in and out with your nose. You're not opening your mouth. And you want to do some multiple of 9, whether it's 9, 18, 27, or 36 breaths like this. You're just focusing on your breathing, and that will decrease your blood pressure. It's a very simple technique. It works every time, and all you have to do is to remember to count your breaths and to breathe in and out through your nose. So those are the 4 ways to deal with hypertension. Now, there's another way to get your arteries to be more flexible, meaning more like a rubber hose instead of a steel pipe, and that is through the consumption of red beets. Also, celery is very good for elevated blood pressure. For those of you that don't like beets, I have a product called Neo 40, and that will do the job. And all you need is 1 chewable tablet a day. So let me know if that's something you're interested in. Okay, the second question is about stem cells. And I've been exposed to a lot of scientists and doctors that are involved in stem cells, and the person that asked this question wanted to know my take on it. So still, stem cells are somewhat unregulated. It's pretty much the Wild West out there when it comes to stem cells. There are many scams out there. So in order to not be a victim of a scam, I recommend you go to the expert rather than somebody marketing to you. If somebody is marketing, I think that's a red flag. If you're hearing a presentation on stem cells, it shouldn't be that way. They should be so busy with business that they shouldn't have to market to you. You should be trying to get to them. Now, the reason I say that is because stem cells work great. They are awesome. They're also extremely expensive. So when you do find someone, the things you're going to want to look for is to make sure the person doing the work is actually an MD, not overwatched by an MD, not looked out with an MD or somebody that is in business with an MD, or the source of the stem cells was being monitored by an MD. You want the actual MD doing the work. So that's common scam out there is, like I say, it's the Wild West. People that aren't MDs are even applying stem cells to people. They're administering them, and they're telling you, well, that's okay. It doesn't have to be that way. I don't need a license to do this. And it's a huge red flag. I wouldn't do that. So that is a big piece of advice. The second piece of advice is to ask for the source of the stem cells. Find out where they came from. And look into it. Just do your little bit of internet research to determine the source. There are some scrupulous and unscrupulous sources of these stem cells. In fact, some of them are illegal sources, but they tend to work the best. So like I say, this is somewhat unregulated. Stem cells work great, but be careful with who you're dealing with. Okay, the third question is about laxatives and essentially laxative alternatives. So one thing I always tell people, there is some combination of my plant enzymes in daily detoxification that will take you from being constipated to the opposite. Essentially, you could go all the way to diarrhea, not that I would advise that. So some combination of these two products. I would work up to 3 plant enzymes per meal, and if you're still constipated, I would start adding 1 daily detox per day, and if that doesn't do the trick, go up to 2 daily detox per day. So you're starting with the plant enzymes, working up to 3 per meal, then once you're at 3 plant enzymes per meal, starting to add the daily detoxification. Other things to do, and these are all important things to consider. There are herbal teas that work as laxatives. They taste horrible. These herbs are typically in the daily detoxification, which is a capsule. So if you can withstand the flavor, the taste, these herbal teas are found in pretty much any grocery store. Another thing is some things to avoid. One of those is green bananas. Do not consume green bananas if you're constipated. You want very ripe bananas and not too many of them. The other thing is sugar substitutes are very bad for people that are constipated. So these are your sugar alcohols. These are found in products that will say no sugar, sugar-free products, yet they're sweet. Well, there's a sugar substitute in there. They are artificial. They are not good for your gastrointestinal system. Either eat the real stuff or honey or steam. System. And it's all about time of the food between your stomach and your colon. So there's an optimum time there. If the time is too short, you have diarrhea. If the time is too long, you're constipated. So water tends to be the equalizer there, especially if you're constipated. Then something else to consume, simple to consume, and they're available year-round, are apples. Apples are very good for those of you that are constipated. So that's what I have for today's podcast. The information in the newsletter will mention my travel dates. I want to thank everyone for listening, and of course, don't keep me a secret.